Tracy from SarahDarkMagic.com here. I wanted to do a flip through of my finished Adventures Outline coloring book. I finished it a couple weeks ago, but it's been a little busy here, so I haven't had a chance to film flipping through the finished book. So this is, this is I believe the first one of the first pages I did, if not the first page. I did a layer of clear gesso on it, and I used watercolors, and obviously some Minotaurs. And then this is a title page. I don't think I did a layer of clear gesso on this one. It's Derwent Inktense pencils is how I colored this in, and just go over it. They're water soluble media, so I just went over it with some water. You can see here some spray residue. I did some fun things in this book. I kind of treated it like my art journal. Particularly once I decided to attempt to color in it every day. I met most of that challenge, but my dad had to have a surgery, and that kind of made it a little difficult to fully complete in the way I intended. So in this page here, again, another one. I believe these are Derwent Inktense pencils again. Colored it in, line of water over it. And you can see here that it didn't really buckle the page at all to do that. And then the same medium here, same beholder, now on dead. And I had a lot of fun. One of the things that I noticed throughout, Todd James, who's the artist that did the line art in this, throughout this book, is that he likes to do this layers of characters, like just masses. And so the very front is detailed, and then as you get back, some of the lines can start losing their edges. Things kind of like blend into each other, and also, you know, detailed here, and then just bumps in the masses. And here you see this little skeleton sticking out. For this one, there is an artist called Jane Davenport, who has her own line of mixed media. She's a mixed media artist, so she works with a few different manufacturers to create things. And these are done with her aqua pastels, which are a water-soluble crayon, basically. I think they're wax-based. And so what I did here is actually, it's again a layer of clear gesso, and I used the aqua pastels on it. And one of the interesting, and I brushed it with water, obviously, to smooth things out and blend it out. One of the interesting things about that particular medium is that because they're very much like a crayon, they are a crayon, but they're very much like the crayons you might have used when you were a kid. They're blunt ends and a little hard to get details and into small areas. Here, these are the Blink Dogs. Trying to remember these. So one of the things that you can tell in terms of different media is that Inktense pencils often will leave a little bit of a line. They don't completely dilute or become soluble with water. So I'm pretty sure this is watercolor. And you can see there's been a bit more buckling, and also if things got particularly wet, it bled through a little bit on the back. This is a cockatrice, and again with watercolors. And I was kind of, so one of the things I wanted to do is kind of create a rainbow with his body, and also I wanted to make the statues kind of reflect that, and then make the background a little, both something that'll stand out against it, but a little closer in terms of color choices than some of the rest of it. And then here's the Death Knights, and I kind of did something similar to something that's coming up to the Displacer Beast. I kind of wanted to just pick like one color for each type of character. and that's what I did, and I believe these are, again, watercolors. And then here's the Spacer Beasts. And you can see here where you can see that there's like some line and some texture going on there, and that means I use those Derwent Inktense pencils for this. And then this one was one of my first scary ones. So the way I approached this book was I had done a few pages at the very beginning just to get an idea. I wasn't planning on necessarily doing the whole book. And then once I decided that I did want to do the entire book, I decided to go back to the beginning and do pages in order, and obviously ones that I'd already done were done. So for this one, I decided to spray, I have Dylusion ink sprays, and they're a water-based dye medium, and I just sprayed it on, which is kind of scary because there's no going back, and hadn't really worked with it much before. And so I sprayed it on, and then I decided to go over the bone area for the Dracolich with a combination of, there's a Faber-Castell Artist Pitt pen that's in white, way between that, and also in some areas a white gel pen to really bring it out. And then like in these areas here, because one of the things about the spray is that it is everywhere. And I wanted to bring in, like, make it a little clearer, define things, and so I used Faber-Castell Artist Pitt pens in green to provide these shadows here, to provide 3D, and also on the stairs. So that was a lot of fun. It was incredibly scary going through it, but well worth it in my mind. And then here we have the Drow. And for these, I use another Jane Davenport product called Mermaid Markers. And it was my first time really coloring with them. They can be, so what they are is that they're a water brush. And what water brushes are a brush where you actually have the liquid in the barrel. And then it comes through nylon bristles, basically. So these are pre-filled with inks. They can be quite saturated in color, and what that means is, like, you can see how dark this and how dark the purples are. So a lot of color comes out when you do them. I was a little disappointed in terms of how streaky they could be, but I still had a lot of fun. And then I don't know if you can see it, but quite a few of these colors, like these here, this blue here, actually have glitter and sparkles in them. So that was a lot of fun to do. And then again with the, actually, I think this was another one. Her set, she has like a celestial part of the set that, this is like the silver, and then there's a gold one here. But yeah, a lot of fun to play with. This is the Etten Rampage page. And these were done with alcohol markers. I have Blick Studio brush markers, and they're similar to Copics, but not quite as expensive, and that's what I did this page with. And one of the things you can see, like, you've seen some bleed through on previous pages, but when you look at the back of this one, you can see that one of the big things about alcohol markers is that they just bleed through. And it's kind of important when you get to coloring, and one of the reasons I really enjoyed this book is that most of the pages are single-sided in terms of only this side has the image of a, whatever the image is, the scene, and this other one is mostly cleared. It does have this text, but it's not like you sacrifice another page to color if you decide to use something like an alcohol marker or any of the other stuff that bled through. So this page is the Flumps. It's again with the Derwent Inktense markers, and Inktense pencils. And one of the things, I really did try to play a little bit with like how exactly I put the pencil lines down for the texture. And the other thing I wanted to do on this page was I looked up some coloring at some point in time in D&D history of Flumps and decided to borrow that. And then since he is such a friend of the Flumps, I decided that his mage outfit would also reflect those colors. And I decided to make the background more neutral in terms of browns and grays, to really hopefully make the focal point be that coloring. I also really liked how his hands came out. So yeah. And then this one's the Battle at Frostbite Ridge with a frost giant. And here again, it's the Derwent Inktense pencils. I wanted to have a little bit of purple going through the sky, which can happen particularly during winter months. And it's a lot of fun, and I did have a lot of fun playing again with how to do these clouds in a way that wasn't just have weight everywhere on the page and give them depth and stuff. I'm not saying I did a great job, but it was a lot of fun. And here, you know, I felt like the blue against the purple was nice, and then having you and her just kind of blend in. I liked having her here, but I also didn't necessarily want to create a huge contrast. I wanted to make it a nice scene. And then in here, I really liked how this hand came out. This is one of the few double page spreads, and these are goblins. And that was actually one thing I did want to point out on this page. So obviously I wanted to make sure I picked something that wasn't likely to overly bleed through here. And one of the things I tried to do on this page, I made the goblins and them green because that's a common color, and I wanted that to be different than I wanted the background here to kind of reflect that there's this huge fire everywhere that's going on as they ransack this town. And the other thing I did was tried to mirror, so they have yellows, reds, and oranges here, and then it gets to be gray, and then you see here in the clouds it's kind of the same, like it goes the opposite way. So most of the yellows and the reds are down below, in part also because the fire would reflect off of the smoke. Just pointing out things that I thought were interesting about it and how I approached it. This is a gold dragon, and one of the things that I did here was again with this purple color and the foggy stuff. I have some metallic gel pens, so I have some silver and some gold here and here, and I use that throughout. And then to draw attention, I made it a little bigger probably than needed to be, but I drew that yellow up there to hopefully draw your attention to this guy. I probably should have changed his color, but it was what it was. And then this is a Gorgon, interrupting two fights. This, I believe, is watercolor paint, and straight on the page. And it's kind of interesting because originally I was putting clear gesso down because I had seen some colorists on YouTube do that for some coloring books, and I have used watercolor and coloring books before and had the pages really buckle in ways that just weren't pleasant, and so I was afraid to do it on this one, and then one day I was just like, I don't want to deal with the gesso. I didn't have it with me, but I want to color, and I had my watercolors, and I just did it, and it turned out really well. Like you can see here, hardly anything in the back. And this one is the Grell page, and again, definitely some watercolor. Don't think these are the Jane Davenport. I think this is watercolor. I really love how this shadowing came out here, and a lot of and this looks interesting to me, like the texture wise and stuff. But yeah, I really like the blue and then the shocking red coloration. This is a Hag page. This is another one where I sprayed it and then went over it. And this is also a case where you can see how, again, Todd James plays with lines, and, you know, sometimes things don't have clear dividing borders between them. So, for instance, this, like, hair comes down all the way from down there all the way down. Same thing I think with some of the wax, but I'm not sure. I can't remember anymore. And so, and like how it creates these skulls here. So one of the interesting things about that is that as a person coloring it, you have to then decide what the lines mean and how you should do it. And so it can lead to interesting variations and just takes and a way of expressing yourself, even though it is in the end like a coloring book, right? Like somebody else's lines, and people can get interesting thoughts about that. And then I believe I took some of this is acrylic ink, if I recall correctly. So I sprayed it, because you can see all the little dots here. And then I had acrylic ink, so this one here is sparkly. I did that on the moon and on the hair. And then I had yellows and greens to help give definition to the characters' faces and the snakes and stuff like that, and the fire. And then this is another one. This is a Hokar, another one in which I used acrylic inks. And one of the fun things about acrylic inks is that, and this is also true, by the way, of the Derwent Inktense pencils, is that when they dry, they're permanent, so you can do interesting layers. Because as much as I do like playing with watercolors and other water media, sometimes when you do layers, you can disturb the under part. So if you know there's something that you want to remain permanent, it can be really good to use. And then this one is the gelatinous cube, and I did different things with it. So I tried I used the Derwent Inktense pencils for this background, so all the stonework and stuff. And then I used alcohol markers to color in the things within the gelatinous cube. And I had a lot of fun with that. And I do like the unicorn head, and I love the pink hair. And then this one's a gibbering mess. This is one of actually the earlier ones I did. And again, Derwent Inktense pencils. I think it may have even been the first one I did without the gesso layer. So it was just kind of fun building this up and everything, trying to figure out the best way to do glass. I'm not saying that this is the best way to do glass, but just playing around with that, it was awesome. And then this one is Knoll Bashing. And I believe this is the Jane Davenport Aqua Pastels again. And I really enjoyed this part up here. The sky was great for it. And then more knolls. And I played again with those purples and pinks and stuff like that there. It's kind of, for whatever reason, it reminded me a little bit of the Ark of the Covenant type thing. I don't know why. Indiana Jones and whatnot. And this is a Lich. I can't remember. I feel like this is actually the Jane Davenport Aqua Pastels again. Had a lot of fun playing with them, and the nice thing about them is there's only about 12 colors, and they're in a little tin, so it is super easy. And then all you need to bring is a water brush with you, and it's super easy to color on the go with a fun water-based media. This one's a Manticore, and again, think this is one of the earlier ones I did, but I can't recall for sure. Alcohol-based markers, and you can see a little bit with the streakiness in the sky. And also, again, with the layers of characters going backwards, so some detailed, and then like some suggesting detail, and then some just bumps, which I really liked. This is a lot of fun. And then this is a mimic, and this also was done with alcohol-based marker, but much later after I did this one. And I feel while there's still some streakiness going on, particularly over here, I feel like it did a much better job. Nice bright pink, and I really do like this sword here. And then this is King Glurbolburb, the Marrow. Shipwreck scene, and this is another one where I did kind of mixed media. He, him, and the people, and I think the boat are all done in alcohol markers. This, I believe, is all done, actually, yeah, all the land and the water are all done with the Jane Davenport Aqua Pastels. And this is a Mind Flare. The Mind Flare itself is done in the alcohol markers. And again, I think with the Jane Davenport. And this character is also an alcohol-based marker. And these guys here. And I thought it was interesting to do, like, great color here, great color here, and then just they're all one color, to blending in enough, but also standing out enough, but not trying to be too distracting. And then metallic gel pens. This is a Minotaur Maze. And at this point I had kind of gotten into a groove of doing alcohol markers, and then I think these are again Jane Davenport Aqua Pastels. This was also a time when I was with my dad a lot at the hospital, so it was easier to, like, I did this whole background I think while I was in the waiting room. And then when I got home, I went into my markers and colored in the Minotaurs. And then this is Myconids, which are mushroom people. And I believe this is all watercolor. Had a lot of fun layering different colors here. I thought like this came out pretty well. I liked using the purples and the blues for the background. And then trying to figure out, I wanted to do these littler, smaller mushrooms a different color to provide some difference in contrast. And then this is the owl bears, and I'm pretty sure these are done with my watercolor palette. I don't have it with me right now, but one of the watercolor palette that I had for a lot of this is basically like about as long as the book is this way, and then just an inch or two wide, and it has a whole, like, I think it was like 40 different colors or something like that. And with that and a water brush, I can do a lot on as I travel around. And this is the Peritons. I think I'm pronouncing that okay. And I'm looking at this and I'm trying to remember, this was about the time that I got my first set of Neocolors. So these are either the Jane Davenport Aqua Pastels or the Neocolors. And you can tell, and the reason you can tell is like, these aren't the colors that I used when I used the Derwent Inktense, but you can still see these little lines in there, the texture from the marks. So it definitely was a medium that works like that. So, and then this is the Rakshasa, which I know for sure was the Neocolors. I had been wanting them for a while, and I was a little afraid because I had heard some folks don't like them as much because, again, they can leave that texture. But once I had played with the Aqua Pastels enough to know that I don't, and the Derwent Inktense, that I actually don't mind it. It was fun to pick up the Neocolors and play with them. And then there's a few hints of the metallic gel pens in here. And this is another spread, 2-page spread. And I believe these are, I think these are just watercolors. Yeah. And I do wonder if I put gesso in. I don't think I did. Because this here is a little shiny. And then now we have, this is one of the earlier ones I did, and this is the Roper. And these are done with acrylic inks. I did apply it too heavy-handed in some areas, but it was the first time I think I had used it. And you can see right here I got my finger, because I put a clear gesso down first, because I wasn't sure how it was going to do, and given that it's an acrylic ink, acrylics tend to like having a gesso layer. But you can see here I got my finger in it, and my fingerprint came through the ink. This one's a Rest Monster, and I had been watching a monotone, a YouTube video where the artist had decided to do everything by using one tone. I was like, oh man, I wonder if I could do that, but kind of try to create an old-timey picture feel with like the sepia and stuff like that. And I think I did okay. So a lot of this is like learning values and stuff like that, which I don't even try to say that I know how to do well, but I really love how his face came out there. I think I did a decent job there with the shadow. So yeah, it was a lot of fun to do this one. And also, you can see I did, these are watercolors. They, Grombacher student watercolors, and it was kind of cool because just trying to apply it, you can see the brush marks, which I thought worked really well with the fact that it was attempting to emulate an old photo. And this one is a Shambling Mound, and again with watercolors. I had gotten, I think it was 6 different Grombacher Academy, or at least student watercolors, and so I was just trying them out. They're a lot of fun. And then this one is a Sahagwin. I don't know how to pronounce that, I'm sorry. And I believe it's again with watercolors. I'd gotten some blues and stuff. It was a lot of fun to do. I think I should have probably done a little bit more shading on this guy. But this is also, I think, near the end of my dad's stay in the hospital, and I was just very tired. These are slots, and you can tell them back to, I believe, oh, I think these are the Inktense, not the Inktense, the Neocolors, because you can definitely see some of the lines, which I think works really well. The texture can work really well with the skin, particularly these types of characters. And I do like how this came out here. Oh, and the purplish, I started experimenting with using different colors for shadows. This is take 2 of the old-timey picture feel, and this time instead of just using the one sepia color, I added in 2 different yellows, and I think it came out a lot better. Crispy Castles. I'm trying to remember what I used for this. Oh, I think so. Jane Davenport released a brand new line, and they had color sticks. And color sticks are really interesting because they're meant to be reminiscent of makeup, and particularly, I believe, lip liner. Hold on a second. I think I'll be nearby. So these are what color sticks look like. And you can see here that you just pull this off, and that's the crayon there, and you turn it to get it up and down. So yeah, so it's inspired by makeup, And that's what I used here. And it obviously was the very first time I used that particular product because it was brand new. And so while it's a little messy in places like there, had a lot of fun using it, and I do like how bright the colors are. This is the Yanti, and it is watercolor. And just playing with like the green and then like the Yanti themselves, and then doing purple, like specifically trying to pick colors that are across from each other on the color wheel. And I also liked playing with making the mountains blue, but also these people, these Yanti up there, blue color. That was a lot of fun. And then this is the last page, and I did this in the Blick Studio alcohol markers. I love making this dragon pink. And also this one here, I experimented a little bit with layering alcohol markers on top of each other. And that was a lot of fun. So that's it. That's the flip through. Thanks for joining me. If you like, feel free to click the thumbs up or subscribe. And thanks again.